The president trying to shove a massive debt-ridden budget down our throats while pretending that it is fiscally responsible. You're going to be hearing a lot about deficit reduction in the coming weeks and days. Like most of what they say, it is absolute nonsense. Here was Biden this afternoon with probably the quote of the day.
Well, the budget I'm releasing today sends a clear message to the American people that what we value. First, fiscal responsibility.
Fiscal responsibility. Biden's budget proposal is close to $6 trillion. It's $5.8 trillion. $5.8 trillion for a country that brings in less than $4 trillion in revenue every single year. So let's analyze that for a moment. Imagine a middle-class American household with $1 million in credit card debt, a couple who make $100,000 a year as a household, and they have $1 million in debt. The husband comes to the wife and says, I've got a budget for you, and my first priority is fiscal responsibility. Let's spend 50% more than we make this year. Let's spend $150,000. That's fiscally responsible. That's what Biden said today. And most people don't even realize it because the numbers are so outrageous. People don't pay attention. The president spent a lot of time slamming the Trump administration for running up the nation's debt, attacks that were disingenuous at best. Take a listen.
The previous administration, as you all know, ran up record budget deficits. In fact, the deficit went up every year under my predecessor. My administration is turning that around. Last year, we cut the deficit by more than $350 billion. This year, we're on track to cut the deficit by more than $1.3 trillion.
He's cutting the deficit by over $1 trillion. It's important to understand what's really being said here. Cutting the deficit implies that as a country, we're going to be spending less than we bring in. That's what it implies. That's why they love saying it, because they know most people don't realize what they're doing. In reality, Biden wants to add $2 trillion in debt to this country just in the next year. $2 trillion more in debt. He's just bragging about simply not spending as much as we did in 2020 and 2021. That's what they consider deficit reduction. Now, 2020, 2021 are the COVID years, right? The worst thing that could happen to a nation this fiscally irresponsible was what happened the last 2 years, where you had all this insane spending, empowering Washington to spend even more outrageously and unsustainably than it did in 2019 and all the rest of the years. Now, it is true. It is true. We're always going to tell you the truth. Trump did add dramatically to the deficit. He did. He did. But there was a method to the madness that was never realized. Trump cut taxes, including the corporate tax rate. It was a massive reduction in government revenue because we all kept money in our own pockets. That ain't bad. It was part of a plan to bring business back to the United States, a process that would take several years to show dividends, of course, and came with a lot of pain in the beginning. It was the right thing to do, which politicians in this country never do because all they care about is getting reelected. This was the medicine that this country desperately needed to take. Trump was giving us the medicine, even though it politically would hurt him a bit, but it was what needed to be done when you're $30 trillion in debt. Reduce taxes, and then the next step was what was even more necessary, reducing spending in this country, ending the march down this unsustainable road that is leading to a very, very dark place. On the other hand, you have Biden, who is just a career politician, wants to just spend as much as he can and take as much as he can and make this government as big as he can and put us in as much debt as he can. And he's got a new billionaire tax plan that he's so excited about. And after all the talk about how awful all these billionaires are and people that have $150 million or $500 million or $20 billion, oh, we're going to get the money from them, pay your fair share. You know what it brings in if he gets this plan through? $360 billion over 10 years. That's peanuts when you've got a $6 trillion annual budget. They'll figure out how to waste that $36 billion that they're going to get from all these rich people that Biden hates so much. They're going to figure out how to waste that money in about 10 minutes. We just sent half that much money to Ukraine. Here he is selling his brand new tax to people that have no clue what he's talking about.
The billionaire minimum tax is fair, and it raises $360 billion that can be used to lower costs for families and cut the deficit.
$360 billion, and I'll figure out how to spend that tomorrow. All their fair share nonsense. By the way, $360 billion over 10 years. He doesn't like to say that part. He wants you to think it's right now. Even if it was just this year, it really wouldn't help that much. It'd help a bit. Over 10 years, it's nothing. It's peanuts. All that tax the rich insanity from AOC and Bernie, it gets them nowhere in reality. It's all BS. It's a brand new, very aggressive tax on the richest people in this country. You'd think it would be a game changer, and I bet every pink-haired kid in college thinks it's going to change the world. It's a measly $30 billion a year in actuality. It's so clear. The country has such a dramatic spending problem. It's never had a revenue problem. This government brings in so much money. We should have so many nice things. They figure out how to waste it all. This country has one thing, a spending problem.